Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another edition of Undefined, and I'm happy to have here with us a young man, an exceptional young man, Richard Dambo. So, Richard, welcome, and I would invite you now to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Richard Dambo, as he has said, and I am in Nigeria. I work in with the development space for, let's say, 6 years now. I've been in the development space where I've worked on different projects with non-governmental organizations in Nigeria. I've worked on peace building projects, governance project, and a bit of social inclusion projects in
Hmm.
Nigeria. So basically, I think that's just who I am.
Okay.
I know when we advance, we'll get to know other things.
Okay, well, at this stage already, I'm quite impressed. You seem to be versatile, working in social inclusion, in development, as well as governance. So you mentioned that you are from and in Nigeria. I don't know which one you said, but I want to go with in Nigeria right now.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
even to where exactly in Nigeria are you?
Okay, Kaduna State to be precise, which is a northwest geopolitical zone, northern part of Nigeria. So
All right, all right. Yeah, I think Kaduna is well known. It used to be the capital of colonial northern Nigeria, and maybe not that known actually. And you could put certain things to rest here. When people talk about Kaduna, especially Southern Kaduna, there is the temptation to assume that Northerners are from the same mold, and that is Northerners, Hausas, Fulanis, Northerners, majority Muslim. I want you to speak to that a little bit, give us a context of Kaduna, but also specifically Southern Kaduna, since that is the region that has been on the spotlight for all the wrong reasons, not just in recent years, but also since the 1980s. I'm not necessarily asking for the history of Southern Kaduna, but this dynamics of who are the people of Southern Kaduna.
okay, thank you very much for that question. The people of Southern Kaduna, we are a people. Let's say Southern Kaduna has a lot of tribes that are just does not the normal narrative of the two-way narrative of it's the Hausa Fulani thing in northern Nigeria, and then it's quite understandable because even yesterday I had to contend with a friend who, and she was saying she was bitter about the fact that everybody feels like because she is from Akwa Ibom they call her Calabar, 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 and then I was like, oh, we also have the same thing here from Kaduna, the northern part of Nigeria. A lot of people feel like, okay, since we are from Kaduna State, we must all be Hausa or Fulani. It's mostly a misconception a lot of Nigerians have, and then it's understandable because most times, like this history is not being taught in schools, and then a lot of people wouldn't care to even check further on understand the demography of people and where they come from and their tribes and ethnicities.
Mm.
So the Southern Kaduna people, we have over 30 tribes in Southern Kaduna. Yes, 30 different tribes in Southern Kaduna. Mostly Southern Kaduna is a name for most of us in southern part of Kaduna that have similar cultures.
Mm.
Like our cultures are similar, so it's easy for you to find out that the Ham person and then maybe the Koro person, they have a shared history of culture and their traditions is the same.
Right.
The traditions are the same, maybe the way they dress, the way they do their burial, the way they give out their brides and whatnot. We have a lot of cultural similarities. So
Right.
it was easy for us to come together, notwithstanding the tribes, and be one. And then because of I understand why a lot of people tend to think okay, the Southern Kaduna part is the Hausa people still, because okay, we have people who are Atiap, for instance, and people who are Ham. That's in tribe. Most times they might when they go to the marketplace, because I don't understand. Let's for instance, I'm Atiap by tribe. I don't understand Ham, so I tend to speak. When we meet in the marketplace, I tend to speak Hausa.
Right.
So Hausa is a language we use to communicate, so that each and every one of us can hear ourselves. Because if I speak Tiap, you might not understand. You would have been Ham. So it's just that way. I think that's why the Hausa culture was a bit more popularized, and then a lot of people fell for the narrative that we are all Hausa. But then it's a very dynamic place with a rich culture. We have the Nok terracotta, which is well known in histories and civilization stories of culture, and how we have a very rich history. We have the Kagoro Hills, we have the Matilga waterfall. There are a lot of things that make Southern Kaduna a dynamic place in culture, the tribes, and whatnot.
Right, wonderful. Hopefully you have put to rest this contention as to, who the people of Southern Kaduna actually are. And when you were talking about the issue of the language, why the Southern Kaduna people would speak Hausa, I think to the factor that you mentioned, we could also add the colonial influence, right? I think with the jihad of the late 19th century, the conquering of so many of the Hausa state, but also the non-Hausa state. Hausa eventually, after the jihad and the British colonial indirect rule through the Hausa and the Fulani aristocrats, Hausa naturally became the lingua, right, in that part of Nigeria. Thank you so much for that. And maybe if you could expand also a bit, because the story that has been coming out of Southern Kaduna is the story for the most part of conflict, right? It's a story of, religious, in particular, religious violence. People would always mention the Sharia crisis of 2000. Some would even go back as far as the 80s, the late 80s, to talk about the Kafanchan crisis or the Miss Wall crisis of 2001, or even the post-election violence. Why does Kaduna, in a way, why is it susceptible, to this bouts of religious violence? Why do you think?
Okay, that's because there are just I used to say that Kaduna is a microcosm of the Nigeria as a country.
Right.
You will find virtually every tribe in Nigeria, you find them in Kaduna State. So, and that is why when we want to talk about conflict, the dynamics of conflict, most times we forget a very important part of this section, which are the people who come in from other tribes. That's we have a constituent fraction number of people who come from Kogi, Niger State, Benue, in Kaduna. So there's a lot of tribes most times, and it's beyond just beyond the Southern Kaduna people and the other people. No, everyone is in this place called Kaduna, and then it's easy for you to say, okay, because there are a lot of clashes in cultural similarities and differences. There's a lot of differences rather in the way we reason, our values, our culture, our customs.
Right.
Take for instance, religion also comes in. So it's easy for you to find out that there's likely going to be a clash because my value and your value do not align. And so this is, if there's any place we need to exercise the greatest caution for tolerance, is Kaduna State, because there are there are no tribes that are not in Kaduna. Okay. Any tribe you can mention, they are in Kaduna. And then it's easy for people who come to, it's just my own personal opinion, and a few persons I've interviewed. It's easy for people who come into northern Nigeria it's easy for people who come into northern Nigeria from the south, west, to really feel or get accustomed to the environment in Kaduna. They say in Kaduna they find a bit of the southern part of life and whatnot. They find it here in Kaduna. So these are some of the things that makes Kaduna easily susceptible to some of this conflict. It's easy because, okay, take for instance the Miss World crisis,
right,
of 2002. Yeah, it was an issue of religious misunderstanding of how some of these things work. And then because some people feel like this thing is okay by them, the Miss World thing is okay. These are just issues of values.
right,
These are issues of values. And then the other party says, okay, no, we are not comfortable with this because it doesn't sit well with our religion.
right.
So these are issues of values. And because you find out that there are people are living anywhere, people are living and they have different values, customs, and this, there's bound to be this kind of clashes.
Right.
So this is what makes Kaduna on the spotlight for conflict. But
Okay.
then with time, recently, the dynamics have changed. If you notice, there has not been any much of, yes, there are insinuations that some of these attacks are religiously pursued and inspired and whatnot, but there have not been real-time conflict because of religion in Kaduna recently. The dynamics have changed because we are beginning to see the dynamics of where the insecurity is looking at more of this someone call it the economy of war, where the social economic crisis is driving a lot of people into some of these things that puts the state on the spotlight. We are talking about kidnap now. I think that's a trending thing now, and then it affects everyone, regardless of tribe, regardless of religion. The dynamics have changed a lot. Just few weeks ago, there's this alleged attack where kidnappers stopped people and took away people to the bush in Kaduna Abuja Road. Nobody asks your tribe or your religion before they stopped and kidnapped these people.
Okay.
So now we are beginning to see how people are coming together to fight one monster.
Right.
And I'm happy about that.
Great. So on the one hand, of course, there is the issue that, yes, the mismanagement of diversity is a factor. Then on the other hand, this same diversity is a blessing that people are now converging, right, on a common interest to secure the land. Thank you for that. I wanted to ask also, you mentioned at the beginning that you're into peace building, governance, and social inclusion. What inspired your work in all these areas? You've already given us a good picture of Kaduna. Would you say that, your environment was part of your inspirations?
Okay. So my inspiration basically, especially has to do with conflict transformation, peace building and conflict transformations, because the first time when I left school after I was done university, I worked briefly as I was a reporter. I was reporting news, and then I report a lot of things. That is why today someone I had to ask me recently, how do you know much about music? I was like, veteran journalist Mohammed Haruna would say a journalist will know something about everything and everything about something. So within that time, I began to know something about everything. I might not know everything, but I know something because you are reporting generally. You report music, you report. I was just that hybrid role. I had that hybrid role where I was just reporting issues, generally news, regardless. I didn't have this concentration. But when I started reporting issues of conflict, I felt differently.
Mm-hmm.
When I started reporting issues of conflict, I felt there was a way it hit differently. And I felt drawn to this thing because I had personal encounters with issues of conflict, in the fact that I was born during the midst of in the course of the Zangon Cut-off crisis of 1992, where my parents said they had to run away from, look for the closest barrack to hide and whatnot. it's a sad and funny story. When my mom tells me, I laugh at times. She said, when I was born, there was the conflict was tearing up, and my grandmother, the way they do this tradition of when you were born, your grandmom comes for, they call it omugo. I don't know exactly. So my grandmom was around. So she kept crying all throughout the night because they said they were hearing gunshot, and she said she was not. And after that, she didn't come to Kaduna again till almost like 10 years after she came. She was like, no, so is this what you guys experience here? And so I had this personal encounter of all these things, and I felt drawn to, okay, this is what you must have happened even before you were born. What can you do differently? What can you do differently? How can you contribute your culture to these things? So I started picking interest in some of these things. I wrote something for a non-for-profit organization, and I pitched something. I can't remember what I pitched at that time. They invited us for a workshop, actually, to train us, and then they trained us on conflict reporting, sensitive conflict reporting. So sometimes at that time we although yes, we might say we were reporting, but mostly we were reporting issues without this consciousness of, sometimes we report issues just to amplify, not to also look at how we can also be part of the solution. It's most of these reports were not solution driven. They were just a way of, okay, amplifying the issue. And then you find out that some of these are our report as journalists will also trigger another war somewhere or conflict somewhere, because you are just doling out reports as a way of, okay, it was reported here like this, I also should report this way. Yeah. So we became more sensitive to some of this, the way we report conflict, because we were looking at how we can actually find peace. In as much as we don't want to distort the fact, we also want to see how we can be also part of the solution.
So generally your environment in a way inspired you into action.
Yes.
Okay.
The environment and circumstances, so to say. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned Zango Kataf. I remember Zango Kataf, and with my family, we also fled to the barracks. Yeah, that was not funny, but it was lovely in the barracks, playing with other kids at a time, and not going to school and all that. Of course, yeah. Any opportunity to not go to school was welcome.
Yes.
But I mean, yeah, it was a serious business, Zango Kataf, and subsequently, the 2000 Sharia crisis. And maybe if you can tell us also, then now we are beginning to understand your journalism flair, and that may even explain why you started the Chongai Chronicles. Now, maybe for those who do not know, you could explain to us why Chongai and what Chongai actually means, and what the Chongai Chronicles does. And then maybe you can use that to also explain something that we've just established. So I was in Kaduna in the summer of 2023 when I met you for the first time. And in one of our conversations, you introduced an idea to me, given this, interest that you have to bring about some bit of change, or at least change the situation, the ethno-religious relationships in the state, as well as through research, development, and other practices. You introduced an idea to me, and I immediately latched onto it, right? Which has since germinated into a full-fledged organization that has been registered and will be up and running shortly. So if you can tell us from your journey from Chongai Chronicles to this organization, that would be great.
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. That was a long question, but it's fine. Yes. So let me hit the point actually. So I like I said earlier on, I felt something differently when I was reporting conflict issues. Yes, I felt something differently, and I felt okay. I should also do something on a large scale now. Like on a large scale, some of these conflicts. What are the solutions to it? At the point we with Chongai Chronicles, we did I call it a solution driven edition of the magazine, because we're looking at how we could actually solve some of these challenges of conflict. In that edition, we're looking for articles that were solution driven. We've had a lot of complaints about the Fulani herdsmen now. So how all the Fulani, not the herdsmen, sorry, not really the Fulani herdsmen, okay, the herdsmen and the farmers rather. But now we're looking at how can we be part of the solution. Now there are narratives that these herdsmen are attached to one tribe, but how true is it? So we don't want to sit down and be armchair journalists and assume. So I felt even journalism should also be part of research works. I wanted to incorporate something that even goes beyond journalism. So for me, I feel the idea of a PACE Institute is to have like solutions that are research-based, empirically driven solutions to some of these challenges we do. Now, when working in the development space, I noticed that a lot of people come in to say they want to do like projects in communities that are affected by conflicts, but they have the funds to either give succor or maybe anything they want to do, but they don't have any special funding for research. So there is no proper needs assessment that is carried out before you give this or you do any intervention. So most of our interventions in conflict areas are not empirically informed. I once went to a temporal camp of people who have been displaced by conflict, and then we went there to do a needs assessment before thinking of what to bring to that camp. And then when we did that need assessment at the end of the day, we realized that these people do not need food. The idea, if we're supposed to sit down from our own camp, from our own office and think of a solution or a succor for them at that time, we will have said, okay, we're bringing bags of rice and whatnot to those people. But when we went to that camp, we spoke with them, everybody was bringing rice, everybody was bringing beans, and everybody was bringing food. But these people have very poor sanitary system. They did not have a bedroom. There were no toiletries. There were no sanitary pads in the camp. In as much as they needed food, yes, much thanks to people who brought food. They also needed sanitary pads and whatnot. They needed a makeshift toilet and bedroom at that time. So it was due to this consultation, this little things we ignore before we just go and start implementing projects or whatnot, that made us understand that, oh, actually, we could actually do something different. And these people will appreciate. And not just sit down and say, okay, we're bringing food to them. So most of the policies sometimes, and even the decisions we take in this country, for instance, Nigeria, from my own experience, are not really empirically informed. We just take them out of either emotions or probably intuition. We just feel, okay, this is what we want to do, and then we just do it. So there are a lot of other things actually that really inspired me to say I want to pitch this idea of the PACE Institute, which we call it the PACE Institute. But then for me, it's the idea of, okay, let's have a firm that is bridging policy, research, and practice together. That everything we are doing, even in practice, as regard conflict transformation, is really it's really an effort of a research that has been carried out and empirically informed that yes, this is the best thing. This is what the people need most times.
Mm. Wow.
Yes. Okay.
Go
Can
ahead.
I go ahead? I have one point now. I was in a community sometimes in that's 2021, I think, thereabout. And this community is a border town between Kaduna and Plateau State. And then before then, we had read a lot of news around how the community has been attacked by herdsmen. And then there were a lot of narrative that these herdsmen were the Fulani herdsmen. That was just the one narrative that everybody was. So there was a project that contacted us, and then they wanted us to do a research for them. I was there. I went to that community. It was one of the most dangerous trips I've taken as a researcher. I went to that community. People were like you have to stay on a bike for like 2 hours to get to that community. I went there, sat down. We had 3 different focus group discussions with the communities. Everyone was there. And then at the end, I realized that these people have a lot of, even intermarriages, they live in peace with between the Fulanis, the Chawe people, and the Irigwe people that were in that community. They live in peace. In fact, they have a lot of this intermarriages between the 2 tribes that live there. So yes, they were being attacked, but these people that attacked them are just bandits. They are bandits. We don't know them, who they are, and what tribe they are. That is the truth. Yeah. They are bandits. So, but then it's easy for me to sit down on one side and just assume. It's easy. So, especially conflict issues, these are not emotional issues. I know, yes, most times emotions are being triggered from the loss of lives and properties. But these decisions are not just emotional issues where we just sit down and take them. No, we must also be very practical in the decisions we take, be informed about how best these decisions will solve the challenges. So I think this is some of the things and driving points to all this.
Wonderful. Thank you, Richard, for that insight, because I think it's truly important that, we don't take for granted and conflict analysis, right? Because like you said, the manner in which we analyze conflict would inform the types of interventions that, we propose. And one of the ways is to actually be more detailed and getting out of our chairs and going to the field and actually seeing things for ourselves and making the analysis and assessment right there in time and space. And this is something that this organization is going to prioritize, the PACE Institute. Congratulations. And for those who are interested in, conflict sensitivity, conflict assessments, conflict analysis, peace building, interventions, and much else, please do not hesitate to reach out to Richard Dambo, who currently is in Kaduna State, but has a wide interest in peace building, in governance, and social inclusion, not just in Nigeria, but beyond. Thank you, Richard. It's been wonderful to have you here. And I wish you everything of the best with this organization. Definitely, I'll be a part of it for sure. I look forward to working together with you to provide, better pathways of understanding conflict, but also, reaching out to the people, that matter by being part of the situation ourselves. So thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Bye-bye.